Hello everyone, this is Professor Zafari again, and let's continue our discussion about Paris in the late 19th century. As we spoke about Edouard Manet, we spoke about his role as an early modernist, somebody who's leading the way to the modernist movement in Paris in the beginning of the 20th century, someone who very deliberately, intentionally, and self-consciously, very much aware of what he's doing, broke the rules, challenged tradition, and very deliberately challenged the art authorities of his time. And if you remember in the video clips that we watched, Manet was not alone. Paris was very much and had an atmosphere of collaboration. Artists, thinkers, musicians, philosophers were collaborating and sharing ideas. And Manet's career overlaps with that of the Impressionists. As you've read in this learning unit, the Impressionists too were early modernists in that they were challenging the traditions. And the Impressionists' aim was to capture a moment in time. The new discoveries in physics and the new discoveries in how light changes and how light and colors are related and how they're formed, and the way that how the eye perceives color and light were very much inspiration for the Impressionists. So in this video clip that I'm going to play for you, that's from the same series produced by the BBC called The Impressionists, you're going to see Claude Monet, the famous leader of the Impressionist movement, and you're going to see him in a movement that really dramatizes how he's very much inspired by his desire to capture a specific moment.
He couldn't bear the sunlight. But the sun was my muse. Every morning it rises, and every sunrise, every second is unique. That morning I leapt out of bed to capture that moment. The light changes constantly. A sunrise must be painted as it happens. It is a race against time. Each tiny gradation of light, all the shifting tones of colour. Don't tell me you can just saunter off to a studio and recreate those from memory. To capture the moment in the moment, that's the challenge. How long did I have? 30 minutes at most, maybe only 10. Sweeping washes of paint. Thin, fluid bands, a swift foundation. The sky, the docks, the water. Ah, so many shades of grey. Quicker, shorter brushstrokes. Boat masts and the ghost of a harbour infused with the rising light. And there, in fierce burning reds, the heart of the sun.
So as you can see in this dramatization of Monet's painting, there's very much a passionate desire to capture a moment, to capture what the light might have felt like at that moment. And the Impressionists were very much too willing to stand their ground, to oppose the Salon, and to do and create the art that speaks to them. So what's so significant about these late 19th century painters is that they're challenging the status quo. They're challenging society. They're creating new cultural developments. They're creating new forms of art. It's not just a matter of a new type of painting or a new style of painting. It's really a social and cultural movement that's ready to move forward, that's eager to see what new possibilities lay ahead for them. The late 19th century is also the time of the birth of modern music, and it's Claude Debussy who's given the distinction of being the composer who really opens the doors of possibility in musical composition. By the time Claude Debussy composes his famous groundbreaking composition Prelude to the Afternoon of a Faun, he's already a well-loved composer. He's composed the famous song Clair de Lune. He's very well loved, but he's also an artist. He's also a creative spirit. And he comes into contact with East Asian music, and specifically Balinese music. And Asian music is not composed using the scales and the tonal system of Western music. Those scales and tones that we take for granted, for example, composing in the key of C major or E minor, these are tones that we take for granted in Western music that we write our compositions based upon. But Asian music doesn't use this system. And in addition to the whole notes and the half notes that we have, Asian music has quarter notes, quarter tones, or microtones. So there's sounds that don't even have a designation in our musical notation system. And Debussy, rather than falling into the trap of the ethnocentrism of his time, of falling into the trap of thinking that his European is so superior to everyone else's culture, and rather than simply dismissing Asian music as insignificant because it's not like his culture's music, he actually was very much inspired. And we'll see that ethnocentrism we spoke of before is going to be slowly but surely challenged by artists and musicians such as Claude Debussy. So Debussy is going to break the rules in his famous composition Prelude to the Afternoon Faun. And the most significant developments he's going to do is, rather than having a specific melody that's the home base or the cornerstone of his composition, he's going to constantly shift moods. He's going to blur the sounds where you'll almost get a melody, and then he changes it into something else. And so you get much more emphasis on tone and on mood rather than a clear melody. So in Western composition, there's the genre of the pastoral. And the pastoral is a musical composition that's based on the idea or the mood or the story of a picnic in the fields, of a pasture and having a lovely afternoon with the sun upon your shoulders. It's the pastoral. One of the most famous pastorals is Beethoven. I'm going to play you a bit of it here. So as you listen, notice to how pretty it is. Notice how you can pick up a melody. So a very beautiful composition, very pretty, very light, and you can associate it with a really gorgeous spring afternoon. But notice that you can pick out a melody. There's something you can walk away humming. You can understand the theme of the composition. Here's another pastoral from a later composer, Bizet, and again a very pretty composition, but also it has a strong melody, and you know the direction of the composition. So if you notice, there's a clear melody. Here it's repeated again. It's the same melody, different instruments, in a softer tone, but it's the same melody. Very pretty again, and this is what pastorals do. So when Debussy chose to compose this piece, you can classify it very easily as a pastoral. But in addition to that, he's taken inspiration from a famous poem by Mallarmé, and it's a poem about this mythical creature, a faun, that's half human and half goat, and this mythical figure is waking up in the forest in this beautiful day, and in the poem he describes the beauty and the majesty of the forest and this afternoon of the faun. And so this is the inspiration then that Debussy uses, but it is a twist or an addition to the pastoral. So what you'll notice then now is that Debussy's changes in the tradition of composition is that there's no clear melody. And he's not writing in one key. He's not writing in one tone. He'll shift. It's still going to be very pretty, but you're not going to be able to walk away with a specific. So there's almost a melody, and now it's going to shift. The rules that Debussy breaks in this composition, namely not composing in one key, not having a clear melody, and blurring different phrases, these are going to be rules that the next few modern composers we're going to talk about very much borrow from him. They're going to break the rules in the same way that he has, but they're going to continue and break even more rules. So in the same way that the Impressionists and Edward Manet were breaking the rules and opening the new possibilities for the modernists, Debussy is doing this in music as well. All of this happening in Paris. Paris continues to be this thriving city that encourages artists and offers the environment for them to meet and to collaborate.